Since Mother Madeleine Sophie Barra established the Order of the Religious of the Sacred Heart in 1800, the nuns have devoted their lives to God and the education of the young. For 125 years, the religious have glided through Duchesne's halls, enriching our lives through education, spirituality, and service. Some say there's magic standing on the portrait steps. You feel the history, the sense of belonging, the devotion to God, and the devotion to Duchesne. The vows taken by the young religious 125 years ago tell much about the character and determination needed to survive throughout our history. Listen now to the words spoken by a novice making her vows.
I make with all my heart the vows to serve God in the Society of the Sacred Heart by perpetual poverty, chastity, and obedience, and according to obedience, to consecrate myself to the education of youth, and I promise to persevere therein until death.
The religious were the role models, richly devout, poised, elegant, with intelligence you dared not attempt to deceive. That intelligence and the high expectations placed on each student engaged the students to perform, to excel, to challenge the world and become critical thinkers.
They were part of our lives. We really consider ourselves children of the Sacred Heart. And the nuns we called Mother, so that ratified that idea of a relationship of trust and of loving concern for us.
I just fell in love with the nuns immediately because they were so personal. I think their charism of warmth and love and joy, just the whole spirituality, it just oozed from all of them. And their welcome was wonderful.
As religious, we really gave our lives for the children.
Because we have so much to give and so much to learn.
I saw the love and care of the nuns, the sharing in their prayer, sharing at the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, just confirmed my vocation.
Was just drawn into the Sacred Heart Mothers from the very start.
Now there was one nun, her name was Sister Gar, who was cleaning the chapel, and I used to go in for a chapel visit, and just the sight of her very quietly and what I thought was humbly cleaning the chapel day after day was very inspiring to me. And then to see some of the nuns praying in the chapel, that was very, I think, instrumental in my vocation.
The kind of effort that the nuns put into helping our social graces, I think was very important to us and very subtle.
I think that bond was very, very close. There was usually one nun that each girl felt she could speak to in confidence, and that her opinion would be cherished and respected. And I think we felt respected by our nuns, and they certainly encouraged us to be independent women.
Mother Eleanor Regan was a great educator, and Helen Casey, the dean, was great in her role. And I always saw the two of them acting like one, which was impressive to me.
Those women were sharing their lives with us, not just their brains, but their whole lives. Obviously, they shared their spiritual life. Nothing was pressured. That was never mentioned about, do you want to be a nun, anything like that. But they modeled what they would have expected us to be if we wanted to be one.
I was struck at the academy going in their straight lines and Sister McGilligan, at that time. And I remember also Sister Catherine McShane giving us the 100 Years' War in one lecture.
It was a time of joy and care of each other. Duchesne was like a big family with the college girls, the big sisters. Sometimes we took surveillances with the elementary school or the junior school. And we just shared, in many ways, the life of the nuns.
I remember Mother Madden, I don't know if you've heard of her, Ann Madden, coming in, sitting down on the floor in our room, in the little room we had for our room for living in, and said, now let's just enjoy one another. And I thought, oh, now this is new. This is something new. We're going to enjoy one another. She was a great lady, had a great sense of humor, and made all kinds of faux pas. That was part of her way.
There was a certain reverence that we had for them because of their way of life. Their whole presence was very reverent, and there was a certain solemnity about the way they said the office and celebrated Mass. And again, in the classroom, they were exceptionally fine teachers.
The chapel is the heart of community at Duchesne. If it's important, it happens in the chapel. Mothers and daughters tell stories of stopping in the chapel or dashing past, only to find the solitary figure of one nun at prayer. And you knew in your heart that her prayers were for you.
The chapel was a favorite. I love to see the sisters, at prayer.
And this chapel has something very personal to our SCJs in it because the stencils that are at back of Our Lady and the main altar in St. Joseph's were done by Mother Meg Shannon. So she was an artist who was here after I left here. She did those herself, both designed and painted.
Chapel is always a symbol to me of the enduring values at Duchesne, the great women of faith who have passed through those halls and who have passed that tradition of faith on to their own daughters.
I think we valued the chapel. It was a special place.
Duchesne introduced many young women to a giving, nurturing environment, and with that, many found a lifetime vocation to the Sacred Heart.
I started at Duchesne as a freshman. I graduated, I was the class of 44. I went on to the college. At the end of junior year in college, I said to my parents, I think I would like to join the community of the Religious of the Sacred Heart. Now, my sister Catherine had already done that. She was a year ahead of me in the novitiate.
I went there as a freshman because my sister, Susan, was already there and loved the place. I had a happy experience there. I always had work study, and it was usually in the president's office.
Of our many traditions, one that distinguishes Duchesne and empowers the students is the determination for educational excellence. Religious and lay educators alike have had an instrumental impact motivating the students to succeed.
You can't imagine how happy we were and what fun we had and how hard we worked. Whatever you needed, people were there to help you, to show you. I remember Madeline Sophie Cooney taking us as young nuns and teaching us how to write a paper for graduate work. I've never had to change any of that. I mean, it was so beautifully done.
I think the strong studies at Duchesne are characteristic of the school.
We are still fostering there a love of God and rigorous intellectual pursuit.
A good education in history and English and all of the subjects, but also in our faith.
So I think it's true that they come in as young women, as girls, and leave there as women ready to take a seat in a college classroom where they can ask any question they want to ask, making a difference in whatever way that they can. very exciting to see that transformation take place.
As soon as I walked into that building, the peace was just almost tangible, and something, the Spirit was at work.
My mother and dad sat down with me and said, "That's where you're going," and fell in beautiful, good feeling for coming here as an RSCJ.
From the very first moment I was there, I realized that God had very special love for me.
These halls inspire girls and women from all backgrounds and all walks of life. The serenity instills a oneness that binds the students together as children of the Sacred Heart.
With the privilege of that kind of education comes the responsibility to make a difference, but a responsibility to what came before and what will come after them. That each one of us knows we're important, but that there were a lot of important people that came before us, and there'll be a lot of important people that come after us, and that each one of us needs to do our part to make the whole ever stronger.
Tuition at that time was $200 a year, and this was a $100 scholarship, which was really very, very fine, because during the Depression. And I told my mother I was so excited, but she said, "Dear, we can't afford it."
They knew that their parents were sacrificing to send them there, and I think they acted accordingly. So I think all of us who were there were delighted that we were having the privilege, and it did seem like a privilege to us, of going to Duchesne.
Long-standing traditions at Duchesne offer opportunities to discover and develop talents while building school community and lifelong relationships.
I remember ring ceremony. That was always a very emotional celebration. First Friday liturgies, congés. I remember good stories around congés. The kids really loved that. So did the teachers, because it was a day off for the teachers too, and it was fun. Prize day, field day, spirit day. There were breaks in a rigorous academic schedule, which I think were good.
First of all, I love Prize Day. To this day we have it. It was a little more elaborate when I was Dean of Students. We gave books away and you actually received prizes. But I love that idea of a student being recognized for her gifts and her talents, whether they be academic or athletic or in the artistic department. The Lamb tradition was that there were 4 weeks in Advent, and each week you would have a practice. And the practice would be maybe keeping silence or doing something special for the poor or doing something. And if you felt that you kept that practice very well, then you would move up. And there were 4 steps into the manger.
Sodality has always been a tradition too in all of our Sacred Heart schools. Hide and seek, cash, was one of the traditional games. And then of course you always had goûter, which meant to taste, and there would always be something sweet.
We used to have celebrations at Petite Marie, and it was a little girl in the 4th grade who was the Little Mary for the Feast of the Presentation, which comes on November 21st. And part of the practice was that you had a practice of 9 days when you tried not to speak out of turn or at the wrong time. And this little girl wanted to be Petite Marie with her whole heart. And she didn't open her mouth for the 9 days. She didn't say anything to anybody. And she was given the honor of being the Little Mary. And she had her little court, and they walked down the aisle, and she had a lovely little dress on. She knelt on the prie-dieu in front of the altar and read the little act of concentration to Mary. And then they turned her out and walked out. But when she got to the next to the back bench, she looked up at me. She lighted up with a smile I shall never forget. It was absolutely ravishing. She knew that I knew how much she wanted to be married, how hard she worked, and that everything was just what she wanted. And I said she had to share it with somebody who would understand what it had meant to her.
Congé means play day in French. This tradition carries on throughout all Sacred Heart schools. It's always a surprise and offers everyone a break from the normally strict academic schedule. The many clever ways to announce a congé have become legendary because with the announcement, the school goes wild.
One of the most memorable congés. One morning in the study hall, we were having general instruction, and Mother Madden was in there telling us something, and all of a sudden, all of the rest of the RSCJs came in and started singing, "Oh, what a beautiful morning." And the words to it were, "Oh, what a beautiful morning, oh, what a beautiful day. We have a feeling it's congé, and everything's going your way."
The Lily Procession honors Our Lady. This celebration included every member of the school community.
8th of December Lily Procession. Well, this procession began with the college seniors, and then the high school, 10, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 followed, one after another. And we all got into that chapel, somehow or the other. When the baskets were all filled with lilies, we had to take them out, empty it out, so we'd pass it on to the next group that's waiting outside. But it was beautifully, beautifully done. And I remember Sister Margaret Mary was at the organ. So she was sitting on the organ all morning long until the last baby, yay high, came and couldn't even reach the basket, so they had to put it on the floor, the lilies, and they made their little promises. What was it? "Oh Mary, I give you the lily of my heart. Be thou its guardian forever." Each one had to recite that as they put the lily in the basket.
World events, large and small, affected Sacred Heart schools throughout the world. And for 125 years, news of events like the U.S. adoption of Standard Time, the dedication of the Statue of Liberty, the battle at Wounded Knee, 8,000 dead in the Galveston hurricane, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the McKinley assassination, the USS Maine and San Juan Hill, the Bolshevik Revolution, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, the Western Front, the worldwide influenza epidemic, the building of the Panama Canal, and Lindbergh's flight, remembered firsthand by only a few, but were echoed in real time here within the walls of Duchesne. More recent history includes the Maginot Line, Pearl Harbor, the Third Reich, Hiroshima, the Berlin Airlift, the Chosun Reservoir, the 38th Parallel, the Cold War, the Iron Curtain, the Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Kennedy assassinations, the Tet Offensive, Watergate, Kosovo, Bosnia, Grenada, and the Gulf Wars, just to name a few. Whether learned from the RSCJ or from Mary Jo Martin, all these were history topics in the halls of Duchesne.
I'm coming from San Francisco at the time of the World War II, when all the Japanese in the coast, the Pacific coast, had to get out. This was happening in October of 1942. So I applied through my Jesuit priest friend, and I was accepted to Omaha Duchesne College. And when I got there, there were 6 other Japanese-American students, one from Seattle, one from Los Angeles, and there were 3 of my friends from San Francisco already there. So we were 7 Japanese-American students with the same situation. We had come to Duchesne for the first time.
As a college student, the Korean War began. And I'm not sure how that impacted other members of the Duchesne community. The boys that I had dated in high school became members of the service. They were drafted into the service.
I think one of the most influential things in my lifetime here was that the fact that the structure of DNA was published. The Watson and Crick model came out, and it really influenced a great deal.
The religious of the Sacred Heart were a cloistered order who dedicated their lives to prayer and the education of young women. Living here together with the students instilled a feeling of family and a fostering, caring atmosphere.
Our accent was always on trying to balance out a prayer life with an active life of teaching. So the cloister that was provided really was a great support to developing that prayer life.
What I loved about them was the way they related to one another, the love that they seemed to have for one another, the way that they didn't speak poorly of one another.
You could speak to the students, and you could speak to people who were there for official reasons, like maybe the women who were members of the Altar Society. But if my mother happened to be coming to the convent and she was coming just as a social visit, I could not stop and chat with her. We had to have permission to speak to anyone outside of our official school business. If anyone called the convent, the call was given to Reverend Mother, and she decided if we could be called to the phone or not. We never left the property, of course. We were cloistered, so we stayed on our property. There was even, we even had our own dentist's offices in the convent so that we never left, even to have dental repair. It was you had to be very seriously ill to leave to go to a hospital. But we were very cloistered. And we lived in an environment of prayer. Our life was, we tried to live our lives in the presence of God.
Bill Ramsey was a brand new public relations director, and To Duchesne was his first job. And he took a picture of me out on the building site with Hank on the front of it. Now, to be honest, I have to add that Hank wasn't on my hard hat, as it was, but he heard the girls in my physics class calling me Hank, and so he put the Hank in on the hard hat afterwards. Well, for some reason, that was picked up by the news media over the wires and was taken up literally around the world.
At Duchesne, great emphasis is placed on critical thinking and reasoning. The results are capable, independent women of tomorrow.
And they certainly encouraged us to be independent women. When I was growing up, that was not the order of the day for women. There was a woman's role. But as a child of the Sacred Heart, we were encouraged to be independent in our thinking and in our lives. And so I think when we left the convent training, as it were, and went out into the world, it was sort of shocking to realize that our voice was not equal to a man's voice. And I just grew up thinking I could be anything I wanted to be. It never occurred to me that there was a certain role that I had to fulfill. So I think that the influence of the nuns was very strong. They gave us an excellent education. And I think, deepest of all, they prepared us for the challenges that life would present.
In a community born of hard work, respect, love of God, and love of one another, Duchesne lays the foundation for future generations of Sacred Heart women.
So I was at Duchesne many years, 13 years, and it was wonderful. I loved all of the children. Had the 7th grade first, Colleen Curran, Gail Goodwin, some of the, Leslie Creighton, some of those wonderful girls.
When we hear that a child that comes into the school is a grandchild or great-grandchild, you know, that the whole family has stuck with us, it says a lot.
That is truly outstanding, where the grandparents, the grandmother has come, the mother has come, she's given that same education to her daughter, and of course that also means the aunts and the sisters, and so that the gift of Sacred Heart education has been given through our alums to their own children and to friends, and that is very outstanding, I think.
Over all these years, more than 10,000 Omaha area women have benefited from Duchesne's Sacred Heart education. The alumnae are supportive, tireless, and dedicated women who promote and encourage the mission of the Sacred Heart.
And obviously the support of Duchesne alums has been very important to continuing our ministry as Religious of the Sacred Heart through the network today. But I see the faculty today continuing our very same ministry.
I think the parents here are very loyal. And I think the alumni are very loyal too, because going back to the people that I remember, even my own classmates, they come around pretty well, I think.
Nothing matches the sense of the commitment on the part of the alumni. I have never seen in any of our other schools the same level of undying commitment on the part of the alumni.
Well, I think that one of the greatest gifts that we give our students is that we really are a family of the Sacred Heart. And many of my friends have told me about them or their children or someone that they know who graduated from one of our schools, attended our school. Sometimes they didn't even graduate but went for a time. And they go to other parts of the country and they'll be in a gathering of women for various reasons, and they start talking and realize that they too are Sacred Heart students, and they immediately have a bond that carries them through the meeting, and then they begin comparing notes and talking about Mother X, did you know? So it becomes a very interesting bonding that they have with people all across the country. And a trust is there that this is someone who knows what I'm talking about, shares my history, shares my value system. And so a friendship blossoms very, very quickly because they can trust this person to understand them.
They were loving and fun-loving and eager to learn, and they were good to one another. They were big sister, little sister kind of relationships. Girls at Duchesne have always said their Duchesne friends are their best friends for the rest of their lives.
The love reflected by the Duchesne community is truly a way of life. To be associated with Duchesne is to be instilled with the desire to share that love of the Sacred Heart in Omaha and throughout the world.
The culture's so deep that those values just continue to be a thread that goes through everything.
Of my 50 years as an RSCJ, I've spent 22 of those years at Duchesne. And that's why I love this place, and I love the people in the place. I just think the people, the parents, the faculty, staff, administration, they've gotten the message somehow of the unconditional love that the Sacred Heart has for us.
I think my fondest memories are about the people that I met here. The nuns, Mother Clark, Mother Dorothy Clark, Jeanette Kimball, Helen Casey, Ethel Fox, Catherine McShane, Teresa Teshima. Ann Madden was I didn't know her too well, but she was the Mistress General of the Academy at the time, was for a long time. Claire Baser. They were just great women.
The quality of our graduates, and I feel that most of them really do have a sense of how much they have received. And what we receive in life is not for ourselves, it's to be given.
Learning does not stop when they walk out the doors of Duchesne. It's a commitment to lifelong learning.
Even though I would like to always be here, I know that Duchesne is safe. And so my hope and prayer for the future is that it continue. The students are outstanding. They are imbued with the idea of service and care for the underprivileged. They are holy people, compassionate people, kind to their fellow students.
If you're 10, 15, 20 years out of high school and you're still wearing your high school ring, it meant something to you.
I entered the society in September of 1963. I fit in, it felt like home.
Everything was kept so beautifully, the lovely wood and all that. And so I went, and with a little fear and trepidation, I was at the bottom of this stairwell, and the nun was saying, "Come up, dear."
When I drive through the Circle Drive and walk up those front steps, I feel immediately at home. The whole ambience kind of wraps around you.
We have had more vocations from Duchesne in Omaha than any other house in the society, and that's has been recognized forever.
Well, once you've been to Duchesne, it's not a place you ever forget, and you carry parts of it with you forever.
Our mission is continuing. This Duchesne Academy is a wonderful example of a school of the Sacred Heart.
Once a child of the Sacred Heart, always a child of the Sacred Heart. And I take that message everywhere I go and have an incredible passion at all the schools where I've worked that they might someday have an organization that will come close to what I experienced and took for granted at Duchesne in Omaha.
That we can continue to influence young girls to become mature, faith-filled, compassionate women.
The Duchesne girl is somebody who has discovered who she is and is ready to give that gift that she has to the world.
Duchesne is unambiguously about the work of God.
I've been here at Duchesne a total of 23 years, and that doesn't count the 4 years as a college student. So really, I know where the back door is, the front door is, and I know a lot about the history of the school. Duchesne has always been a part of my life, and it always will be.
So what is it about the Portree Steps, the Circle Drive, and demanding academics defining this school, this community? It's an embrace from St. Philippine Duchesne herself, saying, continue this mission for the children, for the community, and for another 125 years.